Hello Internet! Today we're going to play with Buf. Buf is a CLI for generating gRPC and protobuf code for multiple clients. It's a nice wrapper around Proto-C that does a lot of the heavy lifting for managing that code generation in a more, let's say, reproducible and maintainable fashion. We are going to, first of all, install the CLI and actually make that work. I have pre-installed that with Brew, so this is just going to be the same thing. It's not going to actually install that. And we are going to try to bootstrap this. I have scaffolded an empty Python project that has nothing except for like hello function here. That's not a gRPC function at all. And we've got like a standard Pi project toml with nothing fancy. And we are now going to figure out how do we actually run this. So first of all, I think we need a buf gen YAML. That's going to actually generate our client code for us. So let's create that one and figure out what do we want to put in it. So buf gen YAML, sorry, with an A. And let's look what do we actually want to have here. So yeah, let's just go with that one. And we're not going to generate Go, we're going to generate Python code. And because I don't know what's the version of the Python SDK, so let's find out. So Buf Python, okay, so gRPC Python. Yeah, so that's the one we probably need. So plugin Python 1.59 and then Buf protocol buffers Python. Let's figure out what version do we need that one to be. So v25. And if I recall correctly, it's nice to generate also PYIs, which basically we want to generate also type declarations. So yeah, I think that should do it. And our output is going to go out to the gen directory, which still does not exist, but we're going to make that in a minute. But before we actually do anything, we need a .proto file. So we need a proto directory, and let's just create ourselves an API.proto. And we definitely want the protocol buffers extension. And let's create a service, which let's call that our example API. And we want an RPC get example, sure. And also let's just make that a little bit nicer. Yeah, so let's do like a CRUD, and also let's actually get stream. Yeah, okay, so we've got like a lot of fake APIs, and we are going to generate all of that. Copilot here will have work. So syntax proto 3, that's important. So yeah, message example. I'm just going to let Copilot do all the dirty work of actually making this a fully fledged API. It's not that interesting. Okay, so now that we've got an actual API, let's run buf generate. That should download the plugins and actually generate our code in the gen directory. This is actually taking a while, but I think we're done. And here we've got it. So we've got gen proto, and we've got our API PB2 and PB2 gRPC. And also all our type hints are here. So I think we are ready now to actually use that as a gRPC server, except for the fact that, as we can see, we don't have like Google Protobuf here. So let's fix that in a minute. So we probably want to add gRPC IO and proto buff. Probably should work. And sync. If you don't know what Rai is it's a new Python management tool. Then basically trying to like give a test drive to it in hopes that it will replace all the current Python management tools that I'm using, because it's quite nice and it's young. So I want to actually catch bugs and see what's going on with that. Anyhow, so I think we've got everything that we need to actually make this work. So this is, by the way, as you can see, git ignored, which it's up to you whether do you actually want to ignore that or not. I say if you want to share that code easily without requiring people to actually generate the code yourselves, you can check that in and just make sure that it's not edited at all, and only, just like it says right here, do not edit that file. Okay, so now that we've actually scaffolded everything, we can create our nice server. So let's actually do that. So in our source gRPC buff, we can create a main file. And from, can we actually take things from gen? Proto gRPC, import example API servicer. And class. Yeah, we can now implement that service. So actually, the fact that I've created so many services, maybe that's going to like be harmful. So let's just go with get and create without all that crap below. And let's regenerate our file. So buff generate again. That should be quicker now. Yeah, and now everything is way smaller, and the API surface is should be smaller, and we can actually we will have time to implement that. So let's go with async. Can we define that as async? I think it doesn't matter. Like this one does not actually know anything about making this work. I'm wondering what can we do about the failed import here, because that's going to actually hurt us in a minute. So let's actually just read the docs of like creating a gRPC service from scratch, because I don't remember that by heart. So gRPC Python server. Yeah, so we've ran our proto C. Proto C, yeah, so that's what we created, and now we actually need to make that work. So class, we are supposed to create our servicer. Yeah, so that should work. Response streaming for feature in. So I find it hard to just basically recall how to Python async gRPC server. Async IO API. Okay, gRPC async IO API. So gRPC AIO, we need to create an insecure channel to a server node. We want to actually create a server. So create server. gRPC AIO server. We do need that. So let's start with the actual entry point. So async def main, and here we want gRPC AIO server. That's a thing. Yeah, that's a thing. We probably need to like tell that where which channel to use or something like that. Let's look at the API. So overview. Caveats. gRPC async API objects may only be used on the thread in which they are created. Async IO does not provide thread safety for most of its API. That's okay. The API is stable. Feel free to open issues. I'm feeling like I'm missing like the basic. Okay, so they do have an example here. So let's actually go to that example. Apologies for not remembering how to like bootstrap the server. I was thinking more about like the code generation, less about actually making this work. So yeah, Python hello world. Async maybe? Yeah, async greeter server. That's the one that we actually want. So we need to import the module and we need the servicer. And yeah, okay, so this is what I wanted. So we've got that. We want this one. So let's actually from gen proto add API server example to servicer. So let's actually just call that. And just to make sure that we are on track, this returns none. So we don't need to do anything fancy here. And we just need to implement now our own server, and this should be working. Let's just import logging, because logging is always nice. And logging basic config, level info, yeah, should be fine. And we are just missing the actual thing, which is class API, example API. And we need to now implement the actual functions. So let's just do that quickly. So async and async. You probably want to add type hints because type hints are nice. So that should be example. We just need to import example from here. That would come from, yeah, the PB2 and example request, get example request. And this should probably be also get example response. And we can now actually do something here. So yeah, example equals example ID name, sure, and response, and create example. So yeah, let's just have that. Yeah, that's not true at all. Create example request, create example response. And I think we've got ourselves a server that should be working, except for the fact that we don't have if under name equals main async IO run main. Yeah, so logging basic config, that looks fine. Starting server, let's just call that here. I don't think we need to have that. And yeah, never mind. I'm just blabbering. So Python main. And it says error, no such file. And it is true because there is no such file. We are in src main. It says no module named gen. And I would blame that because, well, it's actually not here. So let's figure out where do we actually want to generate that in order for us to be able to import. So let's move this API somewhere else. So I think this should be an src slash gRPC buff slash gen. And that should apply to all of these. And we can yank that and buff generate again. And this should now exist in another place. We just need to now import that correctly. So it's now from gRPC buff.gen. all of these. And this will still fail because proto-C is kind of bad and it does not generate one important thing, which is dunder init files. So this is actually like one of the main pain points. Yeah, so no module named proto because, well, there is no module named proto. How do we manage that? Right now, I'm going to hack this way in, but the thing that we might want to actually consider is using another proto generator, which is supposed to fix that. But we'll do that later because we can now fix that easily. So let's just do that. And it says no module named proto. From proto import yeah. Oh, so there is like a nice hack that can actually fix that. What we can do is we can do something in the lines of, first of all, we can remove that thing because we're not supposed to, like, we don't need that. So we can go with import pathlib and import sys, and we just need to write what we're doing because this is crazy. So hack to add auto-generated gRPC code to the path. And what we'd want to do is, yeah, syspath append, gRPC buff. No, so we just need gen. We are already gen proto. I think this should be fine. No? Still no? Or do we need to actually like add? Wait, why do we go parent parent? That's not true. Like we are here. So we just need to say pathlib. So one parent because parent module not found. Let's print syspath to make sure that we have that right. So syspath, gRPC buff gen proto. We do have proto here. Or do we just want to say gen and let that figure out itself? Yeah, okay, cool. So now we've hacked our way through all this crap. We can now basically delete these files that we don't need them anymore. I think, hopefully. Let's figure out if that is actually true. Shutdown never awaited. That's okay. I don't care about that. Yeah, okay. So now everything's working. So we just needed to like hack around the import system because proto-C is bad. You can actually read that like in Stack Overflow and like find people that do the same hack probably. Okay, so now that we've generated ourselves a server and we actually have that, let's try and actually query that server because we can do that. So let's brew install Postman. This is probably going to be a cask. And while Postman is installing, let's improve our server with temporary storage. So let's just say storage equals an empty dictionary, and we can now just, instead of like getting example, we can actually get that by ID. So result equals get request ID, and if that is none, we're going to gRPC abort not found, yeah, and otherwise we are going to share result, and result is okay because this is obviously a dictionary between string to example. Yeah, and here we can now create that one. So we're going to say if example ID in storage already exists, otherwise we are going to actually set that. Okay, so I think we've got ourselves like a server with actual persistence. We can bootstrap it again. Event loop closed, runtime warning, coroutine AO server, shutdown, never awaited. We might want to actually like figure that out at some point. But yeah, sure. That's like just basic async IO stuff that's not unrelated to this thing. What happened with our postman? So postman. Now my computer is going to be paranoid and say this is an app you download from the internet. And lightweight API account, please. Workspace. I don't want any workspace. Let's import create free account. New gRPC. Untitled request. Can we actually like open the proto file? Explore Postman's echo service. Use protobuf API. Import.protofile. That's the one I wanted. So we can go to, I don't know, documents up, oh yeah. So just go quickly to streams. Where are the streams? Why is it not sorted? gRPC buff, proto API. So a service definition. Oh, we can drag and drop. Okay. Open dot proto, and let's just put postman here. Let's just put that here. And why is it not working? Drag and drop a proto file from your local system. You can also load it from a URL that's shortened. Import. Oh, so it's just bad UI. Bad UI. Okay. Select method. Get example. Okay, nice. So local host. I think that was the port number. Let's just verify. Yeah, 50K51. And we can just invoke that, but we need the message. So the message itself need to be something. Did we go for a string or did we go for, what was it, a number? So the ID was a string. So yeah, this should basically just work. I mean, it should return undefined, but should work. So metadata. So status code, okay. Why is it okay? I'm unsure. This should have been, should have returned and not found. Let's see. Oh, wait, that's important. This abort thing is actually async. Okay, and now that's supposed to work. So let's invoke that and not found. Amazing. If we zoom out, so yeah, let's just now go for create example, and we need a name, and we can just give that something. Yeah, and we are supposed to be now okay with that. And let's just get example. We don't need that anymore, and we can invoke that, and we get a response. And in a response, there was an error in your composed response. Yeah, that's not good. Create example one called, get example called. So what did I fuck up? So first of all, oh, if it's unable to pass JSON, that's like crazy. Okay, so let's just take like ID 1. Yeah, this is kind of annoying, postman. But yeah, okay, so this should now return not found. And if we go for create example, this should now, let's figure out like what's the actual API shape of metadata, content type, application gRPC, example not found, response. So what's the actual API that we created for create example? So it's example and then everything inside. So example and then so yeah, example, open object, and now in our object we need that, and we need a name, and name should be whatever we want. That's unimportant, and we can now invoke that, and result is okay. And now we can go back to get example, and let's just comment this out, and let's just get ourselves ID1 again. And invoke. And now we actually got ourselves a response from the RAM of this server. So this server is actually working. It's actually taking 36 milliseconds, which is crazy high for the fact that we are actually doing that like locally. I'm actually quite surprised by how long that's actually taking. Let's actually play with that a little bit more, just because we can, and I'm a performance fanatic sometimes. And we want something like hyperfine, and we can do like one warm-up thing, and let's just, and we need the curl gRPC. So, gRPC curl, if that's the name of it. Yeah, I think that's the one. So let's brew install gRPC curl, which should be a small executable that basically allows us to make gRPC calls as if we're doing curl. So gRPC, let's just open a new tab, so we'll have auto completions, and gRPC how do we actually run that? So let's just look at an example. So gRPC curl -help. Okay, so we do have that on the path. Just zoom out a little bit. And this is quite unwieldy, but let's try that. So we need an address. So our address is going to be localhost 50051. And yeah, dash plain text, definitely. We are not doing TLS right now at all. And my custom server, okay, so what's the name of the method? Let's actually copy that. I wonder if we can export this request now as a gRPC curl. Let's figure out if that's a thing. Yeah, not saving. I want an export. So settings, scripts, before, key metadata. Okay, never mind. So let's just call the method. So the method was, so let's just open that again, because apparently we somehow lost that. Open dot proto postman, import that. So it's example API temporary. Change service definition. So it's example API get example. That's the name of the server. So if we go back here, that's going to be example API dot get example. And in order to actually push data through it, we need to do something like that. So let's push some data through it, because we need to do that. So ID should be just a string containing exactly the character 1, nothing else. And this should work. So it says failed to query does not support the reflection API. Interesting. So why do we need the reflection API? So protoset, using compiled protoset, import path protos. Okay, that should be good enough for us. Yeah, because gRPC curl basically does not do proto. So using proto sources, dash proto, my stuff proto. So we can just go with dash proto, protos API. Okay, so that is now working. I'm not sure what's that dash d at thing. Let's just remove that, and it is still, no, it's not. It's not working as expected. So let's go back one command. Yeah, now we're getting our full thing. So now that we are actually doing that, this is like a really nice command. So let's actually run that with Hyperfine, and let's make sure, like, how fast is this server actually running? So Hyperfine, and we want to run that with, I don't know, like dash dash. And it says terminated with non-zero exit code. Ignore failure. Use the show output to debug what went wrong. So let's show output. It says too few arguments. Yeah, okay. So we need to basically pass that all the way to here. Okay, and we definitely don't want the show output thing anymore, because right now it's actually working. So let's just pass that in like that. And the current estimate is 13 milliseconds, 162 runs. That's quite slow. I'm quite sad. Let's just go with Rye pen 312, and now this is going to actually create ourselves like the full field challenge, so it will take a minute. I'm just upgrading Python just to make sure that's like this is not a crazy problem. Yeah, allow, and let's run that. And it says that it's failing again. So why is that failing again? Oh, because there's no we haven't created a new thing since we've reset the API. So let's just make ourselves our lives easy for a minute, and let's just actually create one here. So that's just going to be, yeah. And let's restart the server. And let's run that again. And that's slower. Consider warm up. So let's warm up. Warm dash warm up. I don't know, 10 iterations. So 13 milliseconds is actually like the time without like the warm up of whatever, like garbage collection, Python's fake JIT, and all of that. Okay, so this server is actually surprisingly slow, which is quite sad. I'll think whether we can actually like improve that, because this also takes into account like bootstrapping curl, so it's not like the full like the gRPC curl tool. So it's okay. So it might not be that slow. I wonder if we can somehow like mitigate that, but we can actually like profile that with a loop that's only like doing that thing with no measure, without measuring the startup time of gRPC curl, but still this is quite slow, even with loading and parsing the proto file and making sure the API is actually working. Anyhow, so we played with Buf. We created a small server. We played with a small gRPC client and with Postman. So like I'm quite happy with today's efforts. And yeah, see you in the next video, I guess. Leave a comment if you actually like that video, and if you'd like to see more content like that or another type of content. I'm really open to suggestions. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.